They say Austin, Texas, in the early 1990s, was the kind of city where people felt safe, leaving their doors unlocked, where the sound of guitar strings from 6th Street floated across the night air, and where danger felt like a distant problem meant for bigger, colder cities. But on the night of December 6, 1991, Austin's sense of safety would be ripped apart forever. This wasn't just another crime. It was a nightmare so brutal, so senseless, that even hardened detectives would whisper about it years later. The city that prided itself on music, culture, and warmth suddenly became the stage for one of the most horrifying murder mysteries in American history. The ordinary night, it started like any other Friday evening. The I Can't Believe It's Yogurt Shop, a cheerful little store tucked into a strip mall on West Anderson Lane, was winding down for the night. Neon signs glowed against the glass. The smell of sweet frozen yogurt hung in the air, and customers stopped by for a late-night treat before heading home. Inside were 4 teenage girls. Jennifer Harbison, 17, a bright student with big dreams. Sarah Harbison, just 15, Jennifer's younger sister, known for her kindness and shy smile. Eliza Thomas, also 17, Jennifer's close friend, and a hard-working girl who never skipped a shift. And Amy Ayers, only 13, the youngest of them all, who had simply joined her friends for a fun night out. They were the kind of girls you'd see in any American town, laughing, teasing each other, full of energy, their futures unwritten. None of them could have imagined that within hours, their names would be etched into one of Texas's darkest chapters. The closing shift around midnight. The shop was almost ready to close. Chairs were stacked, cash counted, lights dimmed. To anyone passing by, it looked like just another business wrapping up for the night. But hidden in the shadows, someone, or perhaps more than one, was watching. What happened next remains one of the biggest mysteries in Austin's history. Somewhere in those final minutes of December 6th, the world inside that little yogurt shop turned from ordinary to unimaginable. The discovery in the early hours of December 7th, firefighters were called to the shop after reports of smoke. At first, it seemed like a simple blaze, nothing unusual for a strip mall store. But as the smoke cleared and the flames were beaten down, the truth emerged. Inside, the firefighters didn't just find fire damage, they found horror. 4 bodies. 4 young girls, bound, gagged, and shot execution style. Their bodies had been set on fire, as if someone had tried to burn away the evidence of what had just been done. The youngest, Amy, had survived her gunshot wound long enough to cling to life in those flames, but not long enough to be saved. The shockwaves, the news spread across Austin like wildfire. Parents clutched their children tighter. Strangers hugged each other in disbelief. Detectives who had seen it all admitted this scene haunted them more than any other. Yogurt shop murders weren't just a crime. They were a rupture, a wound that cut deep into the soul of the city. And as investigators soon learned, solving this case would be anything but straightforward, because this wasn't just about who pulled the trigger. It was about secrets, lies, confessions that didn't add up, evidence that vanished, and a mystery that, to this day, refuses to let go. They say some crimes don't just scar a city, they haunt it. And by the time investigators began to pull apart the tangled threads of the yogurt shop murders, Austin, Texas, realized it was staring into an abyss far darker than anyone imagined. The crime scene echoes when the fire was put out and the bodies were discovered. Detectives believed they were stepping into a straightforward case, a robbery gone wrong, maybe arson to cover the trail. But within days, nothing seemed simple. The crime scene, already compromised by the fire and careless foot traffic, held almost no usable evidence. Items were burned beyond recognition. Any fingerprints were smeared or destroyed. And then came the biggest frustration: DNA. In the early 1990s, forensic science wasn't nearly as advanced as today. Testing was slow, often inconclusive, and the sample sizes too degraded. For investigators, it felt like chasing shadows. Still, they clung to the hope of answers. Cigarette butts, melted cash registers, and a strange combination of ropes and cloth bindings, every fragment was catalogued. Yet each piece raised more questions than it answered. The community in Fear Austin wasn't just shocked, it was paralyzed. Parents who once allowed their teenagers to work late shifts now forbade it. Young girls who had always felt safe walking home from the mall suddenly felt eyes on them in every shadow. Newspapers ran front-page headlines for weeks. Radio stations filled with callers demanding justice. The phrase, "the yogurt shop murders," spread across Texas like wildfire, embedding itself in the state's collective psyche. The funeral services were heartbreaking. Rows of classmates sobbed as 4 coffins were lowered into the ground. Entire neighborhoods showed up, holding candles, whispering prayers, but leaving with an gnawing sense of dread. Whoever did this was still out there. The theories began piecing together possible motives. Was it a robbery that escalated? The register was empty, but why kill 4 girls in such a brutal way for so little? Was it a personal vendetta? The victims were all young, well-liked, and seemingly without enemies. Or was it something darker, serial predators with no ties to the girls at all? Rumors ran wild. Some whispered about a satanic cult, others about a serial killer passing through Texas. Every tip, no matter how bizarre, was logged, and there were hundreds. The first suspects within weeks, police began questioning local troublemakers. Teenagers with criminal records, known arsonists, petty thieves, anyone who might have stumbled into that yogurt shop that night. One name kept popping up, Morris Pierce, a 16-year-old who had been caught with a gun matching the caliber used in the murders. At first glance, it seemed like a breakthrough, but there was a problem. The gun was quickly dismissed by ballistics. Still, suspicion lingered. Detectives widened their net. 3 of Maurice's friends, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, and Forrest Welburn, soon found themselves under the spotlight. They were all teenagers, all from Austin, and all with reputations for getting into trouble. But the public didn't know these names yet. To the city, the case was still a terrifying mystery with no face. The pressure mounts. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. The Austin Police Department faced mounting criticism. How can a crime this horrific go unsolved? Screamed editorials. Politicians leaned on investigators to deliver answers. Detectives doubled down, often re-interviewing the same suspects over and over again. Some officers were convinced this wasn't just random violence, it was a planned attack. But if that were true, then what was the motive? Why target a yogurt shop? Why 4 innocent girls? The city's long night. By the mid-1990s, the yogurt shop murders were becoming Austin's most infamous cold case. Detectives rotated in and out, fresh eyes coming to old files, but nothing stuck. Forensic testing advanced slowly, and each time DNA results came back inconclusive. Frustration deepened. The families of the victims begged for answers. Candlelight vigils were held every year on December 6th with the same chilling message. Justice delayed is justice denied. And yet, deep inside the Austin Police Department, whispers grew louder. Detectives believed they finally had their suspects. And what came next, the confessions, the trials, and the shocking reversals, would plunge this case into a decades-long nightmare, leaving everyone to wonder, were the wrong men accused? Or had the killers been caught at last? Years passed, but the shadows of that December night in Austin never truly faded. Families of the 4 teenage girls fought relentlessly for answers, while investigators kept searching for any thread that could finally unravel the truth. In the mid-1990s, hope appeared when police arrested 4 young men: Morris Pierce, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, and Forrest Welburn. They were teenagers themselves back in 1991, and the case against them seemed to give the victims' families some relief. Interrogations were long and intense. Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen eventually gave confessions, describing their involvement in the murders. But from the very beginning, doubts surrounded those confessions. Many believed they had been coerced, shaped by pressure, and not entirely reliable. There was little physical evidence tying them to the crime scene. Still, prosecutors pushed forward, and 2 of the young men, Scott and Springsteen, were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. For years, It seemed as if justice had been served, but science had other plans. Advances in DNA testing began to uncover cracks in the case. Samples found at the yogurt shop did not match any of the convicted men. The truth became harder to ignore. The real killer or killers were still out there. Appeals were filed, and eventually the convictions of Scott and Springsteen were overturned. After nearly 2 decades behind bars, they walked free. Their names forever linked to a crime many still believe they didn't commit. The families of Eliza Thomas, Sarah Harbison, Jennifer Harbison, and Amy Ayers were once again left shattered, forced to relive the pain of uncertainty. The city of Austin, too, was haunted by the unsolved case. 4 innocent girls murdered in the most brutal way, and decades later, no one truly held accountable. Even today, the yogurt shop murders remain one of America's darkest mysteries. Every lead, every new piece of technology, every whisper of a confession has been chased, but the answers remain out of reach. For the victims' families, time has not healed the wound. For the city, the memory of that night still lingers like smoke. The case stands as a reminder that justice can be fragile, and that sometimes, even when the world is watching, the truth can stay hidden in the shadows.